I was awoken at the crack of dawn by one of the diggers, Gar specifically. He told me that tonight would be the night. The others had a plan. They want me to announce that I am the new leader during the feast. When he is distracted with rage, they intend to kill him from behind. I tell Gar that I accept his plan and will assist them tonight. What have I gotten myself into? Damn them all. I told Keith I planned to replace him. He arose, filled with rage. I waited for the blow to strike him. Instead, it hit me. Gar was Keith's spy all along. They dragged me far away from the gardens and tied me to a barren dog tree. He said that a quick death would not befit me, and I will waste away under the deathly sun. I can just barely reach my journal from here. I suppose this is the end of me. When the sun was highest in the sky, the heat became unbearable. I saw figures on the horizon. They were not human. They were the hounds that come to eat what the humans leave behind. I thought they were going to eat me. Instead, they went for the blood-soaked meat ropes that held me in place. I was free. I kneeled down to the hounds and looked deep in its eyes. I told them I knew they could fill their bellies to the brim. It barked once in what I assume was confirmation. I stood up and we set off to feast. When we reached the settlement, it was amidst their feast. I approached, deaf in my gaze. Keith was shocked and angry. The diggers and gatherers were quick to his defence. I guess he bribed them. I whistled, and the hound slinked through the fur to my side. We struck like a lightning bolt. My fist smashed into Keith's face, just as my hounds pounced upon his closest guards. While I was physically weak, I was quite fast. I stole a shovel and quickly buried it into Keith's bloat while he was disoriented. The smell was sickening, as I expected from a man like him. The hounds made quick work of the rest. I helped, of course. None were spared. I made sure I had my vengeance upon Gar. The hounds were quite full by the end. I took my time and buried each corpse, or what was left of them. I leave this book upon their graves in hopes that someone who can understand it finds it. If you do, take heed of these words. The Dogscape knows all, and is strict but fair. She provides justice where justice is due. Log 5. I had a dog right after the Dogscape happened. His name was Carl. He always followed me around. When I was almost dead from starving, he got me dog fruits. When I was dying of thirst, he held milk in his mouth and got it to me. One day his foot got stuck in her mouth, and I couldn't get him out, so I watched while it swallowed him. A few years later, when I went back, Carl was right there, but he was stretched out, and I went to pet him, except it wasn't him, and he bit me and wouldn't let go. I wonder if people can be part of the Dogscape too. I miss Carl. Log 6. All is one in the new truth. The dog mother is vast beyond imagining, and requires many to be kept comfortable and clean. We chosen do not go unrewarded, however. In her vast wisdom, the matriarch gives all we need. We sup from her vast teat, a hearty meal unlike any other. It invigorates and nourishes us custodians, and gives us more than we could have ever wished. The time soon approaches, though, to find new workers. The metamorphosis is upon many of us, and soon we will join with the glory of the dog mound. We are so different from the others, as they shuffle about down among the fetal groves. Many of us have a thick coat already, and old Lawrence has already begun to walk on all fours. Soon we will shed our mortal selves, and be part of the dog mother. Our mother. Log 7. I think we knew the war had been lost the day the general committed suicide. The masses of flesh and fur just spread, like waves across the cities. We found out that whatever it was drinking the oceans and eating anything it came across. Airstrikes, tanks, bombs, it only slowed it down. We were living on borrowed time. It was unstoppable. I don't think it was until later that we noticed all the dogs were gone. And then at night, the howling, it was just too much. The former soldier's face streamed with involuntary tears as he remembered the events. He sat there, wallowing in his own emotions, telling his story to a skeleton he found. My unit completely wiped out. I saw those tentacles and those mouths. They tore them to shreds. I ran away even when they called for help. It's all your fault. The dog tree shifted slightly. The many eyes growing around directed their gaze towards the psychopathic man. You ruined everything. You killed my friends, my family, goddamn everyone. He ran and stabbed one of the eyes with a bone fragment. A howling noise emerged and a nearby dog tree swatted him several yards. He broke a few ribs when he hit the ground. He coughed a bit of blood, but got back up and charged again. This time he ran towards one of the open mouths around and kicked several of its teeth out. It bit his foot in response, costing him a toe or two. He was so full of adrenaline, he was incapable of registering any kind of pain. He beat and tore and bit at the flesh with his bare hands until he was knee-deep in blood and gore. One of the tubes he tore spilled some sort of digestive fluid all over him. It burned, but he had to go on. He dug and dug with his bare hands until the ground started to close above him. He kept digging until he found them, the heart and brain. He laughed at his fortune of finding both of them so close to each other. He jammed his hands deep into grey matter, disturbing the contents and slowly losing oxygen in his tunnel of meat. He gasped and clawed at the heart. Tearing it out of place, he collapsed and blacked out. He awoke to many tentacles burying themselves in his body. One hit his spinal cord and fused with his brainstem. A flood of thought hit him all at once as he suddenly became one with the Dogscape. More tentacles connected themselves to his vital organs as he became assimilated. He saw through every eye in the lands, and he felt every single nerve on the planet. The healing factor continued tearing him apart, but adding new pathways and connections. It wasn't long until he was entirely consumed. His memories faded away as his brain was reorganized into replacing the one he had destroyed. Log 8. It has been 3 years and 2 weeks now since I met another human being. I know because I've cut a small notch in my left leg for every day, one in my left arm for every week, and one in my right arm for every year. Admittedly, not the most effective way of keeping track of time. But when I started, I figured I'd be dead or this would be over before it really mattered. Like I said, I haven't met any other people for a while, but I figured I would write this anyways, just in case as a warning to others that might be out there. I ran into something terrible today. Well, the whole Dogscape is terrible, but I mean more terrible. I think even among the Dogscape, it's some sort of crazy abomination, since the feral dogs and the ground mouths didn't seem too fond of it either. And that screaming is not something I ever hope to hear again. But that's not the beginning. I'm sorry about this. The blood I'm using doesn't really come off the paper, and I can't waste any by throwing it away. And not even thinking about talking to other people for years has made me sort of bad at thinking in a straight line. But I'll try. Let me just start over at the beginning. The day started normally. It was my weekly gathering day, so I left my tent. By the way, I left the tent at the foot of the pillars of dogs in the direction of the setting sun, if you want it, but you probably won't because the skin has probably gone bad by now. To collect the dog fruits I would need for the week, and to fill a bag or two with milk. But when I got to the place where there should have been teats, there was just a bloody mess where someone had dug deep into the flesh of the Dogscape. I didn't really think much of it at first, just that I would need to go looking for a new source of milk. Then I saw it. I thought it was another person at first. If I had stopped to really look first, I wouldn't have had any problems, and I wouldn't be writing this right now, I guess. I started shouting to get its attention, and I did get its attention, because it turned to me, and then I realised that I had made a huge mistake. Thinking back, the really long arms and the twisted body probably should have been my first clue. But I didn't really see that anything was wrong until it turned towards me, and I saw what I thought was a head was just a featureless lump of flesh. Its arms unfolded outwards, each arm ending in 2 canine legs, and a human face on its chest opened its mouth and started screaming. I figured it was bad news then, and made a dash for the nearest pillar of dogs, but it kept running after me, and it was much faster. Somehow I managed to make it, and I started scrambling to climb up out of its reach. I didn't get very far before there was a sharp pain in my leg, and I looked down and saw that it had bitten me with one of the many canine mouths along the arm things. I screamed as it pulled me down, but that didn't do much, and I probably would have died right there and then if it weren't for what happened next. Out of nowhere, a mouth I didn't even see when I started climbing the dog pillar bit down on it, and then one in the ground, and then they started chewing at it, but that didn't really seem to hurt it, but it let go all the same. I ran away as fast as I could, but I could hear that screaming long after I was out of sight. I didn't sleep that night. Just before nightfall tonight, I felt like I had to make sure the Dogscape had killed it and went to the pillar, but I saw no trace of it. But the notebook I tore this paper from was there, and I took that. So now here I am. I'm not going to stay around here any longer after I finish this, but finding this notebook made me think maybe there are other people, and if so, maybe I should warn them about things like this. So if you're reading this, good luck. Oh, also, I am moving in the direction of the rising sun, so if you can read this, you are probably another person, so if you go to that direction, maybe we can meet up and be a little better off than we were. Log 9. Ticks are the only things that seem to like this place. They're everywhere. During the evenings I can see massive clouds of the bastards, flitting across the malted surface, making the flesh of the Dogscape quiver as they drink their fill. Sometimes candid legs of various sizes and deformity burst through the surface to scratch at them. It doesn't work. All the Dogscape gains are vast stretches of scar marks, which the fleas feed upon. Sometimes I rest on the side of a large outgrowth and only realise it's a monstrous tick. They latch onto one of the deep arteries of the dog flesh and endlessly leech of the new world's lifeblood. I saw a man once. It was hot that day. I was making my way for a dog pillar and saw him in the distance. He wasn't moving, and as I approached, I saw why. He was covered in ticks. Not a single spot on him was clear. What little clothes remained on him were stretched over the fuckers. There was no wind, so all you heard was the faint scuttling of their tiny legs scratching against their ludicrously swelled bodies. He must have heard me, because he opened his mouth and tried to say something. His voice was raspy, and his mouth was red, but he did manage to say one word. Itch. Hello everyone, Creepypasta here. Thank you for watching another episode of Creepypasta Weekends. Check my Patreon down if you want to support me. Follow me on Twitter, and thank you for watching. So I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.